Some things are under our control, while others are not. Our opinions, tastes, desires, and the like, in other words, everything related to what we do, is in our hands. On the other hand, things like our body, money, fame, and power, in other words, what doesn't have to do with what we do directly, don't depend on us. This is how the guide to life of the famous Greek philosopher begins. So, if you want to live a good life without getting too worried, you need to understand what you can control and what you cannot. Our mission is to use our energy on what we can control and let go of what is not in our hands. One of the biggest challenges people face is what others think and say about them, and this is almost inevitable, whether to praise or criticize. To avoid letting this affect you, it is important to understand that other people's opinions, insults, or personal attacks are not under our control. In the Guide to Life, we learn how to deal with these things. Therefore, the goal of this video is to take the teachings from this famous guide to life and use them to stay calm even when others speak ill of you. You will learn why it's not worth worrying about what others think and how to reach a point where opinions cannot harm you. If you're new here, subscribe to not miss the content we're preparing for you. Principle 1. Dealing with insults or offenses. It is crucial to remember that when someone insults or attacks us, they are not actually affecting us directly, they are only affecting our own interpretation that these actions are offensive. So, when someone tries to provoke you, be aware that it is your initial perspective that is being disturbed. Try not to react impulsively because with time and serenity, it will be easier to maintain control over your emotions. One key to not being affected by others' opinions is to understand that the insult or offense itself is not inherently harmful. The emotional discomfort we feel in response to an insult comes from how we interpret and process that action. When someone tries to belittle you or show disrespect, remember that these words will only have power over you if you allow them to. Choosing not to react negatively demonstrates your ability to deal with negativity. Unfortunately, that's the nature of life. When you feel insulted or offended, ask yourself, do you want to win or lose? Are you willing to give in to what is beyond your control? We can draw a parallel with Stoicism and desires. To stop being influenced by them, we should not fight against these desires because they will never disappear completely. The difference lies in how we handle these desires, whether we completely surrender to them or ignore them. Similarly, by not being disturbed by insults, you will experience a sense of satisfaction that will make you stronger and more capable of facing adversity with determination. Surely, you can recall that occasion when a negative comment ruined your day or even your week, despite your efforts to avoid it. I fully understand this situation since we all go through it at some point. If you relate to this situation, I suggest you keep watching because in the next principles, we will address the topic of self-control. Principle 2, staying firm in your purposes. In the second principle, it is essential to understand that if we want to not be affected by other people's opinions, we need to be prepared from the start to face ridicule and criticism. If you venture into philosophy, be ready to hear comments like, "Suddenly, you've become a philosopher," or "Where does this arrogant attitude come from?" However, it is crucial not to adopt that arrogance and to remain firm in things that contribute to your well-being. Remember that if you stay true to your convictions, the same people who used to ridicule you will eventually respect you. On the other hand, if you allow others' opinions to influence you, you will end up being a target of ridicule again. Therefore, the key here is to stay true to your goals and values, regardless of what others may think or say. This principle is crucial not only for those seeking to become philosophers but for anyone in any aspect of life. Often, People abandon their true talents and passions just to please critics and skeptics. What Epictetus teaches us is that if we allow our purpose to be shaped by the fear of others' opinions, we will not fail by trying and not succeeding, but by yielding to external influences. Instead of interpreting this as a failure, we should see it as a real problem. When someone gives up simply to avoid social conflicts or to avoid others' judgments, it is worth persisting, even if it means facing ridicule or questioning for a while. After all, by persevering, we are living according to our true essence. So, whenever you need to make decisions in your life, consider your priorities and understand the true motivation behind your choices. Principle 3. Ignore others' criticisms. Don't worry if someone speaks ill of you. Don't let the idea of being dishonored or poorly regarded in certain places haunt you, because if a lack of recognition were harmful, then we would be at the mercy of others' power to make us unhappy. However, the reality is that we are someone only in areas that are under our control and depend on the decisions we make. This principle is incredibly relevant in today's times. How often have you done something you really didn't want to do just to gain approval, especially on social media? The quest for social validation on these platforms can be toxic to the mind. We need to ask ourselves, is it worth compromising who we really are just to get some approval? Is it worth handing over our emotional well-being to others? My answer is clear: no. I recommend that you reflect on this, because we have all been in situations where we did something that embarrassed us but had no ill intentions. At some point, why worry about the laughter or marginalization of others? Do you really believe that your happiness depends on how popular you are? If you go down that path, you will be constantly in conflict because your happiness will be beyond your control. As a result, you will live in constant tension, altering your true essence just to maintain or elevate your status. One of the central principles of Stoicism is to focus only on what is under your control and remain undisturbed by what is beyond. Regarding insults, remember that no one can harm you unless you allow it. If someone tries to harm you or speak ill of you, remember that they act based on what they believe is right. Not everyone will act according to what you consider right, but that doesn't mean they think it's right. So, if someone judges you based on a mistaken impression, it is that person who will suffer the consequences of their mistake. Therefore, be patient with those who insult you and remember that these are just their opinions. Principle 4. Self-mastery. For an insult to become a true offense, we need to give our mind the same care we give our body. I'm sure you wouldn't let a stranger enter your home every day, recognizing the danger that poses. However, when we accept an insult and process it as an offense, we allow that person to enter our mind and stay there for a while. We are allowing strangers to access our thoughts, something we would never allow in our home. To reach a state where we can ignore the negative feelings arising from an insult, discipline and self-control need to be developed. This applies to all areas of life, including family relationships. When you feel anger, seek to control that emotion, as it will prevent much unnecessary suffering and provide a greater sense of peace with yourself. Believe me, this change will have a significant impact on your life. Principle 5. Act according to your own judgment. We should not be ashamed to act according to our principles, even if others misinterpret what we are doing. If we are acting correctly, why should we fear others' misconceptions? This also applies to social media, where we often allow our happiness to depend on popularity or validation from others. This leads us to act to please others instead of following our own path. Principle 6. Don't worry if they speak ill of you. If someone harms you or speaks ill of you, remember that they are acting based on their own perspective, believing that they are right to do so. However, we cannot expect everyone to act according to what we consider right because people have different worldviews. So, if someone judges you based on a mistaken impression, it is that person who is making a mistake to their own detriment. Based on these principles, practice patience when dealing with someone who judges you. Principle 7. No one can truly harm you. Through this seventh principle, we examine the motivation behind received insults. Epictetus reminds us that we cannot expect everyone to act according to our own perspective or values. This expectation can be harmful. We should ask ourselves, is it realistic to believe that everyone shares our views? This belief is naive. Therefore, when someone insults us, assuming they know the truth about us, we should remember that we are the only ones who truly know ourselves. In the case of acting correctly and facing the ignorance behind the insult, we should be content because we are the only ones who know our truth. We should not carry the burden of regret if we acted correctly. As Epictetus said about those who insult us, that is how it seemed to them. In conclusion, I wish to share a valuable lesson from Epictetus. How long do you think you will delay becoming worthy of the highest progress and following the teachings of reason that you have already received? You have already received the philosophical principles with which you should be familiar. What other teacher are you waiting for to start improving? You are no longer a teenager but an adult. So, if you continue to be negligent, lazy, and constantly postponing things, adding excuse after excuse and delaying the day you will dedicate yourself, life will pass while you remain ignorant until the day of your death. Share your thoughts on the video content in the comments. If you want to learn more about Stoicism, just click on the pinned link in the comments to access exclusive content. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to not miss the valuable content we are preparing. Until next time.